Hi everyone, Kyriakos Iliadis. Today I'm going to talk about the banks. It's a common conversation that usually comes up. People are struggling. People are not able to meet their commitments. So a very common one that I see very often is that I sit with somebody and the telephone rings and he doesn't answer the phone call. I say to him, but why don't you take the call? He says, no, it's the bank. I said to him, okay, so what's the problem? He says, no, I didn't meet my car payments. I'm just using one example now for argument's sakes. I didn't meet my car payments, and I know it's them. They're phoning me. I always say, when you ask them for the money, did you know what to say to them? And usually people say yes. I said, so if you owe them the money, tell them the truth. So what I'm actually trying to say is that don't ignore the bank when dealing with a bank. Tell them the truth. Just remember, these guys have been around for years. They have got all the experience. They've got people defaulting all the time. They have got certain procedures in how to help people when they're defaulting with their houses, when they're defaulting with their motor cars, when they're defaulting with personal loans. I mean, they've been around the block, so they understand that. They're not in the business to take your vehicle away or to take your house away. They're in the business of borrowing money. Now, look, they're normal people. They're people just like you and me. And I think that's where everyone sometimes gets it wrong. They go to the bank, they don't come right. Emotions, and you will hear me many, many times talk about this. I always say, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. It's a common thing. People, I've been many times in the bank, so I see people screaming and shouting and that. And at the end of the day, those are the emotions. I mean, that's not how you're going to solve a problem at the end of the day. They have systems in place. You can't meet your car payments, go talk to them. Say to them, listen, this is what the situation is. What are my options? Because what actually happens, and a lot of people are not aware of it, is every time you keep on ignoring them, and this is why people don't realize they keep on phoning, they're putting it on the system, couldn't reach. So in their minds is, you know what, they couldn't get hold of you. So they will keep on trying to get hold of you. The thing is, two things, and people always make the mistake, is when you tell them something, they document it. So if you're going to say something, tell the truth. Tell them how it is. What are my options to sort this problem out? And they do have systems. I mean, they're busy all the time with new products in how to help people when they're defaulting with their vehicles, in how to help when they're defaulting with their house payments and that. I mean, I don't know all the procedures of all the banks because they constantly are changing. But one thing I do know is that they do help because they're not in the business of taking things. They're in the business of lending out money. But you need to communicate. Do not let your emotions get the better of you. I say to people all the time, if you do not understand something, ask. I've seen people in the dealerships when they buy, they're just quickly signing there because they're so excited to take that motor car and go. Or they're so excited they just bought their first property. They're just signing. They're not reading. They're not asking questions. But you know what? Ask questions. What happens? You're buying a property over 20 years. Don't tell me for 20 years you're not going to fall into trouble. Don't tell me that you're buying a car for 5 years or 3 years or whatever the amount of months that you're not going to find difficulties. Because the majority of us do find difficulties along the way. Ask these questions. Know your options. Communicate with them. Another thing, and I say it all the time, do not wait for the problem to come and hit you in the face, and then all of a sudden you're running around and you're trying to sort out, because then you've just allowed the situation to escalate to another level. When you see you are going to fall into difficulties and times are not looking so good in your business, or there's a chance for retrenchments, go and communicate with them. Rather fix the problem before it becomes a big problem. When it becomes a big problem, there's always a solution to every problem. But you know what? You can handle it better. So where I'm going with this at the end of the day, they are just normal people. Okay. If you've had bad experience with one person, don't think that everyone is like that. If you cannot come right, you want to buy a vehicle, you want to buy property, and for instance, they say no to you, ask them, but why? What do I need to do so I can qualify for this vehicle or this property? Don't accept because somebody says to you no, that is the end. Ask, what do I need to do? You want to go and buy, you're a first-time buyer, or you're buying a commercial property. There are certain rules to certain things. I mean, residential properties over X amount of years, commercial properties over so many years. Understand. First go, communicate, say, do I qualify? What are my options? Then go out. Now, what do most people do is, and then they're always embarrassed, is they go and buy, or they don't really buy. They're putting their offers to purchase, and then they get declined. And then they're upset, and then they're embarrassed. So I always say, communicate with your bank, understand what are your options, understand how much you can buy for. Then go out there and do what you need to do. You're not sure on, I mean, they've got so many different departments that they can actually help. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you go and you communicate, 9 out of 10, they will help. I mean, there's always that 1% for some other reason. Your things might not be in order. You might not qualify for certain reason. You know, people sometimes get upset with me. I always say to them, the Credit Act was the best thing that ever came out. Because what it actually did was it allowed people to understand what they can afford to spend. Because some of us get carried away. We get given credit, we spend, and then all of a sudden, you know, we got to pay back and we just don't know what to do. And I always say, you know what, why ignore the problem? Problem isn't going to disappear. Not because you're a nice person, they're just going to write off the money. They're going to constantly harass you for that money and ask you, you know, or how are you planning to pay? What do you communicate? Tell the truth. Tell them, this is my situation. What are my options? I always believe by communicating with people, you will solve the problem. Now, these people deal with this every single day. They can give you the advice, the right advice, so that you know what to do. It is never over until it's over. I always say that, you know what, you always have options. Many times people think it's the end. It's never the end. You know what, the day you die, that's the end. There's always an opportunity to solve a problem, but communicate. Don't let your emotions get the better of you. Don't start screaming and shouting and because you're upset. You're not going to solve a problem like that. Most people help people because in the manner that they communicate with a person. So what I am saying is, you know, if you're in a jam, go communicate. You will find a solution. Look, there are times that, you know, things have been left too far, or you really cannot meet this payment, then, you know, that is what it is at the end of the day, you know. But I always believe there's always a solution to every single problem. Communicate. You know, sometimes the problem might be this big for you, but for the next guy, it's only this big. So don't ignore those telephone calls. I mean, I've seen people, you know, I don't know what to say, or they block the number because the bank is asking, but, you know, they're not going to leave you alone. They're going to ask for the money. And what most people forget, things do always come right. But somewhere it's been documented that you ignored, you made promises, you couldn't do your commitment, and then you forget about it because now again things are going well, you're up to date, and then all of a sudden you want to go and buy another car, you want to go and buy something, and boom, it says your credit rating isn't very good. Now you don't know what to do. So what I am saying is, you know what, communicate with them, don't ignore them. They're just people at the end of the day. They are just people. Tell them the truth. ask them what is the options, and they are there to help. And I always say these movies that I'm doing is to try and help people. I mean, I don't want to see a person lose his motor car. I don't want to see a person be put out of his house. So you know what? At the end of the day, if by me posting these movies and putting them out there, and it does manage to help people, that's all. You know what? We have to serve. We have to help. I always say, somebody else helped me. So if I can help you, I gladly do it. So please don't ignore those phone calls. Tell the truth. Tell them as it is. You've lost your job. You've lost your job. You're in a financial difficulty. You're in a financial difficulty. You made a mistake. You spent all the money. So be it. I mean, many times I see people, say to me, I went on holiday, I put it on the credit card, fly and play later, and they always got these big smiles and whatever. And so what actually happens is they take it over 2 years, and then, or 12 months, or whatever the case might be, and then I don't see those smiles anymore. So think before you use that credit. Thanks very much. Kyriakos Iliadis.